Welcome students to our 12th physics online lecture. Today I am going to continue with the chapter Wave Optics, 7th chapter. This subtopic which I am going to take is polarization. Now last lectures we have seen about the nature of light, the Newton's corpuscular theory, Huygens wave theory, Huygens principle, the reflection of light at a plane surface and the reflection of light at a plane boundary between the two medium. Today we are going to see about polarization and we'll see some of the important points regarding polarization. We'll have some definitions like unpolarized light, Polaroid, plane polarized light, polarizing axis, the plane of vibration, the plane of polarization. And then we'll emphasize on Malus law and Brewster's law. Polarization. Now what is this polarization? We know that the light is in the form of electromagnetic wave or a transverse wave. In 1865, Maxwell proposed that the light is electromagnetic wave. Electromagnetic wave means, here we can see in the figure that the electric vectors are in y direction and the magnetic field is in z direction and the wave is propagated in x direction. So the electric vectors, electric field vectors and magnetic field vectors are mutually perpendicular to each other and they are perpendicular to the propagation of light. Then what is unpolarized light? The electric fields of waves emitted along the x-axis by a light source like the sun, stars or a light bulb will be in all possible directions in the yz plane and the corresponding magnetic fields will be perpendicular to their electric fields. Such light is called unpolarized light. Now this light which we get from the sun is in all direction, or even in our house we have light bulb. The light is propagated in all the direction, like you can have in three-dimensional case. The unpolarized light is represented in this manner. We can see that the electric vectors are in all the directions and they are perpendicular to the plane of the propagation of the light. They are perpendicular to the plane of propagation of light. So you can see this figure, the electric vectors, field vectors are in all the directions. Then we have plane polarized light. Now light is constrained so that its electric field is restricted along one particular direction, then it is called plane polarized light. This plane polarized light is represented by this horizontal line and the propagation of light is perpendicular to this electric vector, that is into the paper or into the paper. Here we can see that into the paper or coming out of the paper is the plane polarized light. Now how do we get this plane polarized light? We know that there are some materials in which it allows some of the light waves to pass through the medium and it blocks some other rays. So this is nothing but a polarizer. This Polaroid is a kind of synthetic plastic sheet which is used as a polarizer, and this polarizer may be a tourmaline crystal or nickel prism. They have the property of dichroism, and when the light passes from this Polaroid, we get when unpolarized light passes through this polarizer or a Polaroid, then the light which we get is plane polarized light. So here this is the unpolarized light, and from this unpolarized light we get the polarized light. Now what is the polarizing axis? the particular direction along which the electric field of the emergent wave is oriented is called the polarizing axis of the polarizer. Then here we see that this is the source, this is a light source, this is the unpolarized light, and this is in one plane we can see, and it is perpendicular this unpolarized light. We can see that it passes through a Polaroid, and then we get the plane polarized light. We get the plane polarized light. Here this is the plane polarized light, and the plane polarized light has the electric vectors which are vibrating continuously, and this plane is called the plane of vibration. This is ABCD. We can see here in the figure, and simultaneously in this figure we can see that here there is the unpolarized light, and the unpolarized light, when it is passing through a tourmaline crystal, that is ABCD, we get ABCD. It is called the plane of vibration, and the plane which is perpendicular to the plane of vibration is called the plane of polarization. So here we can see in the figure that ABCD is the plane of vibration, and PQRS is the plane of polarization. Now there are two cases. If we take a second Polaroid, if the polarized light is made to pass through another polarizer with its polarizing axis perpendicular to the polarizing axis of the first polarizer, no light can emerge on the other side of the polarizer. So here we can see that the second polarizer is kept perpendicular to the first polarizer, and whatever light is emergent is the plane polarized light from the first one. But since the second one is perpendicular, no light is emerging out. Then case 2, if the polarizing axis of the second polarizer is parallel to the first polarizer, it would allow the light wave to pass through it with maximum intensity. So we can see that S is the source and the light is unpolarized light. When it passes from the first polarizer, we get a plane polarized light, and if the second polarizer with its axis BB dash is parallel to the first polarizer, we get the plane polarized light with maximum intensity or the same intensity as the incident intensity. We can see in the figure the electric vectors which are having maximum intensity. But in case, the third case, if we consider, if the angle is less than 90 degree, then the intensity will be less. It will be between these two cases, and then we have Malus law, in which he tells that he has experimentally proved that if the angle is if the second polarizer makes a small angle theta, then whatever it gives the intensity, it gives the equation of the intensity of the linearly polarized light when it comes out of the second polarizer. So we'll see that equation of Malus law. He gave the mathematical law. Also he used the electric field, and he did not consider magnetic field because it is the same equation. Now consider an unpolarized wave having angular frequency omega and wave vector k, which is equal to 2 pi by lambda, traveling along the x direction. So here we can see that the incident ray, below you can see that there is a incident unpolarized light, and there are two polarizers. We can see that in the figure. So this unpolarized light is having the electric field E equal to E0 sin kx minus omega t. The intensity of wave after passing through the polarizer will be proportional to the square of its amplitude, that is E0 cos phi mod square. Now consider the linearly polarized wave emerging from the first polarizer with the electric field E1 vector equal to J E10 sine kx minus omega t. This is the equation of the first light emitting from the first polarizer, where E10 is the amplitude of the polarized wave. We know that intensity is proportional to amplitude square. The intensity of the polarized wave is given by I1 proportional to mod of E10 square. Wave passes through second polarizer whose amplitude is now E10 cos theta and its intensity I2 is proportional to E20 mod square. Now this cos theta, because sin theta is the ray with sin theta is getting blocked, only we have the component E10 cos theta. Now I2 is proportional to E20 square, that is I2 proportional to mod of E10 square cos square theta, that is I2 is equal to, we can say that I2 equal to I1 cos square theta. This is known as Malus law, which gives the intensity of a linearly polarized wave after it passes through a polarizer. Now taking the different cases, that case 1 and case 2, that is when theta is equal to 0, if cos 0, we have maximum intensity, that is the light passes through second polarizer. So I told you initially that I2 is equal to I1 when both are parallel or the angle between the two polarizers is 0. If the angle between the second case, if the angle between the two polarizer is 90, then we have seen that no light, cos 90 is 0 and I2 is equal to 0 and no light passes through the second polarizer. Now we'll switch on to the next topic, polarization by reflection. This is the Brewster's law. In board exam we have question of at least 3 marks on this. Now you can see the figure. In the figure you can see that there is a media, when light is incident, unpolarized light is incident at an angle on boundary between two transparent media having refractive indices N1 and N2. Part of it gets refracted and the rest gets reflected. So you can see in the figure, the unpolarized light is incident. On the right hand side you see polarized reflected light and refracted light. So the reflected and refracted rays do not have equal magnitude and are partially polarized. So in the figure it is not shown, but both are partially polarized at any angle theta, but at a particular angle theta b, which is called the Brewster's angle, because he experimentally proved that when the unpolarized light is incident, the reflected wave is completely plane polarized with its electric field perpendicular to the plane of paper, while the refracted wave is partially polarized. And this is called the Brewster's angle. Angle of incidence is called the Brewster's angle. Then the second thing is, at this angle theta b, the reflected ray and the refracted ray are mutually perpendicular to each other. This is the second point. Now we'll have the derivation of it. For this angle of incidence, the refracted and the reflected rays are perpendicular to each other. From the figure, for angle of refraction theta r, from the figure we can see that angle of incidence is theta b, and whenever unpolarized light is represented, it is shown, the light is in all direction, or it is shown by arrow, double-sided arrow, and also the dot in between. That is the unpolarized light. But when it is we can see the reflected light is completely polarized. In that case we have only the light, the light which is perpendicular to the plane of the paper. It is shown by dots, and that is, if theta b is the angle of incidence, the reflected ray is theta b only, because by law of reflection. So we have on the right hand side 180 degree equal to theta b plus 90 plus theta r. So from that we have theta b plus theta r equal to 90. Then from Snell's law we have n1 sin theta b is equal to n2 sin theta r. n1 sin theta b is equal to n2 sin 90 minus theta b. n2 upon n1 is equal to tan theta b, or we can say theta b is equal to tan inverse n2 upon n1. This is known as Brewster's law. Now n1 is a transparent, it is a refractive index of transparent medium, and it is air or it might be a vacuum. So n1 is equal to 1 in that case. So this is a mathematical form of Brewster's law. If theta b is given, we can find n2. If n2 is given, we can find theta b. This phenomena of polarization by reflection is used to cut off the glare of reflecting surfaces using special sunglasses. Sunglasses are filled with Polaroid. So we know that when unpolarized light passes through a Polaroid, its intensity decreases. So only in sunglasses we have the sunglasses made up of Polaroids. And this phenomena works only for non-metallic surfaces. Second thing of application, one more application we have is, we have in the aeroplane the windows are made up of the Polaroid to avoid the ultraviolet rays. This is also one of the example of polarization. Then we have polarization by scattering. Now this is also one of the important phenomena of light. When sunlight strikes air molecules or dust particles in the atmosphere, it changes its direction. This is called scattering. When sunlight is scattered, it gets partially polarized. Now we see the sky is blue in color and we have white clouds. Why is this so? And even during sunset and sunrise, there is, at the dusk time, it is orangish red color sky. Why is this? This is nothing but because of scattering. If there was no scattering, then it would be dark even at the daytime and we could see the stars. Degree of polarization depends on the angle of scattering, and when the sunlight is incident on the particles, it gets scattered, and if this angle is at 90 degree, then it is completely polarized. This is regarding polarization, and it is a very important topic, and we have two main, we have seen Malus law, we have to derive this or prove it, Malus law and Brewster's law, which is the important part which is asked in the exams. Then the next topic which I am going to start, or introduction of the next part, is interference, which is a phenomena of light, a very important phenomena of light, in which again we are using light as a wave. Young Thomas, he was the first scientist who used the light as a wave, and he showed the interference pattern in the lab. In 1801, he performed the experiment using the two coherent sources. First he used sunlight, but the interference pattern was not clear. Now, what is this interference? According to superposition principle, when two or more waves overlap, the resultant displacement of the particle of the medium at a given point is the sum of the displacement of the particles produced by individual waves. This is called interference. In the figure, we can see on the right hand side that there is interference. There are two waves. Two waves are coming together or they are overlapping, then there are two sources, S1 and S2 are sources of waves of the same wavelength and amplitude, and they are in phase with each other. These are the coherent sources. That is, it is derived from the same primary source. We have constructive interference, we are going to see, and the destructive interference. Points where the crest, we know that the light is in form of wave, and the wave, it has crest, trough, crest, trough. So the points, the definition goes for the constructive interference as points where the crest of one wave coincides with the crest of another wave, and where the trough of one wave coincides with the trough of another wave are shown by blue dots. At these points, the displacement is maximum and is twice that of for each wave. These are the points of constructive interference. Now destructive interference. Points where the crest of one wave is coincident with the trough of another wave, they are shown by red dots. At these points, the displacement is zero. These are the points of destructive interference, and these points are dark points, and the constructive points are bright points. As shown in the figure, we can see that blue dots are constructive interference, the red dots are the destructive interference. So when they are taken on the screen, we can see the pattern as dark, bright pattern is seen on the screen. Now, what are the coherent sources of light, or what is coherent source of light? Two sources which emit waves of the same frequency having a constant phase difference independent of time are called coherent sources. Two independent primary sources cannot satisfy this condition as there is no constant phase difference between them. To obtain sustained interference pattern, one usually obtains two secondary sources from the same primary source, as done in the Young's double slit experiment. So these are the things, that is polarization and interference, the introduction of interference we have seen. Thank you.